We just wrapped up Woodley versus Covington on UFC on ESPN 11. We just left Vegas. We wrapped up with the production. Just got done talking to Dana. A lot of crazy stuff coming
It's
out
true.
after this card. It felt like a pay-per-view. Did it not?
Yeah.
Was this actually a pay-per-view in disguise?
Here's the
Did
thing.
we
I
pay
would
for it?
say I would say that this card as a whole, cumulatively, was is better than next week's card. Next week's card has a really great main and co-main, but the rest of the card kind of poo-poo.
Yeah, I honestly think that we were supposed to pay for this, but we accidentally pirated it on ESPN Plus. It might actually be the case, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this is suspicious. I feel like Dana wouldn't give us this kind of thing for free. There's something going on here that we don't know about.
Some kind of ploy,
Some
some
kind of
kind of
phantom credit
scheme.
card charge that won't
Ah,
show up, you
yes.
know?
Well, you better check it because oh no, it was only on ESPN Plus. It wasn't on regular ESPN TV. You better check your bank account right now. They might have
Fuck.
taken everything.
They took they took my whole savings account.
you have your card on that account.
Damn it. But you know what? In the end, it's going to a good place. It's going to Dana White.
Yeah, not the fighters.
It's not going to any of the fighters. They don't get paid. Actually, there were like 4 or 5 $50,000 fight of the night bonuses or something like that, right?
There were four.
4 of them. That's a lot, but well deserved. I know
Can't quite
Kamzat got
remember
one of them.
who it was. Yeah, it was Kamzat,
I don't think
was
Johnny Walker got one.
Mackenzie Dern. Let me check the prelims.
Obviously, Colby
Oh,
deserved it.
Damon Jackson for submitting Mersard Bektic. And I think who was the last one? Randy Costa, I think. That was a was
Yeah,
it Randy Costa?
Paulo Costa looks good at that weight. I'm surprised he can get. Now he did look really good though. He was the one that got the head kick from around the world, right? He completely murdered
he
his
threw
opponent
out that little jab and then followed it up with a really nice head kick.
Oh man, I didn't even see that one coming.
Bantamweight.
It almost knocked me out, you know, and I'm just watching it.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, overall, fantastic card.
Yeah, is this where we're ending?
Yeah. Thank you for watching, everybody. So getting into the main event, that's the real meat on the bones. Even though there's a lot of meat on these bones, this is kind of where everyone knew what was going to happen, but still really wanted to see it anyway. Obviously, we saw Colby Covington absolutely obliterate Tyron Woodley. And I mean, we saw this in the last 2 fights that Tyron had with Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman with seemingly identical styles to Colby Covington. And I mean, you kind of see this pattern of a very offensive wrestlers and Tyron Woodley, and he doesn't do well against those kind of fighters. So I mean, not too big of a surprise here, but I did see a lot of people thinking that Tyron would knock Colby out, and I just want to ask, what world are you living in, sir or ma'am? I don't think Colby or Tyron threw more than 10 significant strikes. I mean,
No.
obviously he landed a good bit, but like nothing absolutely significant at all. Like, and I'm not talking about significant strikes.
I will say,
like
in the
UFC,
defense of those people who thought maybe Tyron was going to come up, because I didn't know. I mean, I tended to favor Colby going in, but like I didn't know what we were gonna see. The things that I could see contributing to that idea is there was a lot of heat between the two of them, like a lot, more so than Tyron's last 2 fights. Like he genuinely hates Colby Covington, and I thought maybe this might have been like a Khabib Conor thing, where the trash talk backfires and all it does is motivate the opponent, to go in there and just really wreck them, just because of all that hatred and all that animosity between the two of them. So that wasn't true, of course. That didn't happen. And then the other thing that gave me a little bit of confidence in Tyron Woodley going into this fight was that he acknowledged that in his last two fights he wasn't letting the hands go. He wasn't throwing. His offense just wasn't there, and uh, he was going to go into this one and rectify that. So he acknowledged his error, and he was saying he was going to go in there and do differently. So that might lead one to think, okay, well, he's got a good he's got a good shot then. Um, and then he went in there, and I will say his offense was slightly improved, a little bit improved, uh, as opposed to his last two performances. But it was still just not enough. He was waiting for Colby to go first every single time, and Colby was just taking advantage and really put on a terrifically dominant performance. Uh, so when we talk about Tyron Woodley hanging it up, I would agree with that. I think it's something's just not right with him. He's just not in it anymore. I don't know what it is. Because he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy where it's like, oh, his body's broken down or he's got like serious head trauma or anything like that. It's I don't know. It's like it's all mental. It's a mental gap. It's like a just a lack of real fire. It's like he doesn't want to really be there anymore. And if he doesn't want to be there, then he shouldn't be there. He should call it quits. The guy is one of the greatest welterweights to ever do it. I mean, I don't think there's any shame in retiring now, especially after the way he injured his rib. That was pretty nasty.
I kind of agree with you about him retiring, but at the same time, I think the UFC, if he wants to, should give him maybe another shot at someone who doesn't have that style that's so effective against him. Someone who's maybe more striking heavy, less wrestling intensive, and just let him kind of feel it out. That is, again, if he wants to, and that's a kind of a big thing. I don't think he does, especially after this injury. That's not something that's going to heal quickly. You said it was a broken rib, correct?
Yeah.
That's gonna kind of halt Tyron Woodley's return to the octagon. And after that amount of time, after these kind of losses, I don't know if he's gonna want to fight anymore. And I don't think Dana in the end will even let him. As much as I want him to keep going against some lower level people, I don't know. But another thing you want to think about is we just saw on this card, we saw Khamzat Chimaev beat Gerald Meerschaert very, very dominantly. One punch thrown was it the whole fight or just on Khamzat's end? And he knocked out Gerald. We'll talk about that a little later, but I feel like, and a lot of people were saying this as well on like the Reddit page of MMA, which is where all the real MMA fans get their information. A lot of people were saying they want to eventually have Khamzat fight Tyron as a way to break into that single digit middle or welterweight ranking, and that's not a bad idea. Have him fight Damian Maia and then have him fight Tyron Woodley, and then bang, he's right there for title contention.
I think that's a terrible idea, Matthew.
I don't think it's a good idea, but I think that's what the UFC might want to do, especially if we see Khamzat demolish Damian Maia, if Damian Maia takes that fight, because Khamzat is a little scary right now. I don't know. So that's something else to think about.
That's a bad fight for Tyron. If this was Tyron back when he was, like the Darren Till performance that Tyron had, I would not feel the same way. I would feel much differently about his chances against Khamzat. But this is 15 rounds in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has
not looking good.
He's looked bad, dude.
10-8s against him in every one of those fights, too.
He's looked real bad. And you want to put him against this killer that is just on an absolute tear, a wrecking ball, it seems, through the welterweight division. Of course, hey, we're going to see that hype train might get derailed. They always do.
Yeah. Even the best get derailed at some point.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's the sport what we cover, that's MMA.
You're gonna lose sometimes.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's always, it's still a hype train, and it could get derailed.
Yeah.
Even in a sport as volatile as MMA. But if you think about it, like, the UFC, Dana White, they don't necessarily love Tyron. They really want to promote this star. That's a perfect window of opportunity to get him right up there in the rankings, and I think that's a good idea. Not for Tyron, maybe not for matchmaking purposes, but for to get him up there, that works,
You're sacrificing Tyron
Yeah, it's
Woodley.
literally a sacrifice to get Kamzat up there. And that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
I don't think it really launches him into the welterweight contention like you think it will, because
it will for the casuals though. They market it as a former champion being beaten by an unranked opponent who fights every single weekend. It works well for more casual people, which makes up the majority of the sport. I mean, there's going to be more casual than hardcore fans out there. But someone like you or I would be like, well, Tyron has looked like a plastic bag the last 3 fights. It doesn't really say much. But I see where you're going with that.
yeah, I I don't know. I also think the Damian Maya fight. Oh, jeez, there's an earthquake outside. I also think the Damian Maya fight's a bad idea though too. I think he's gonna run through Damian Maya. Damian Maya is just uh, not the fighter he was
Right.
anymore. His grappling is still outstanding. It's just he's an older guy. He's at the tail end of his career.
Yeah, who knows where they're going to go with that? We don't even know what's happening with Tyron or Damian Maya. No fights are signed. Maybe Kamzat wants some time off. Who knows? Maybe
I
he's
don't
like,
think so.
yeah, I don't think so either. But
He
yeah,
he was barely in a fight last night.
that's true.
He barely got
Yeah,
to compete.
he literally. People were saying like the worst injuries he got were like sore ankles from walking across the octagon once. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? But
that's it's
back to Colby and Tyron, the main event. I know we get sidetracked because Kamzat's such a fun topic right now, but I don't know what you do with Tyron. That's a mixed bag right there. I don't know. He's looked like a statue. People are calling him Tyron the Frozen One Woodley. The
oh.
memes don't lie. These are memes for a reason. He's the biggest meme in MMA right now, besides someone like Johnny Walker.
I feel
But
bad for him,
I do
man.
too. I really do. I think they should give him some more, at least one more chance against someone who's a little less experienced. Because Colby's an absolute murderer. He went 5 rounds with Usman and probably gave him the most competitive fight out of anyone in history, and that's the best welterweight in the world right now, arguably. So, I mean, it's tough because how do you view Tyron losing to these extremely high level people? He's not obviously a champion anymore, and he probably will never. He never will be. But maybe he'll be a journeyman. Maybe he'll just be the gatekeeper for the welterweight division. I don't know. I'd like to see him staying there because he's still like a fun draw, and against some lower level people, I would like to see him keep fighting.
Here's the thing about Tyron and hanging it up now. Like I've said, I don't think he has taken like a horrific amount of damage in his career. Last night was pretty bad, but um, like I don't look at him as I look at someone like maybe Cowboy, who I'm just like, oh man, your head can't be in good shape after the wars you've been in and the amount of damage and strikes you've taken and that kind of thing. Like I don't see that when I see Tyron. I see a guy that, I mean, he's 38. He does not look 38. He looks way younger than that. He's still in terrific shape. Um I do think he has some mental issues in regards to fighting, but like neurologically speaking, of course, I'm not a neurologist. I'm just speculating here. I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like his brain is probably in good shape, right? Like he hasn't. I can't recall any just like absolute wars he's been in aside from these last three, and he in the Usman and Burns fight, I don't think he took a ton of damage, right? Like it was mostly wrestling dominance. This one he took some more damage, but I say get out while the going's good. You're only 38 years old. You've had an extremely successful career, and he's got other things that he could things after fighting I know you're gonna laugh, but he's got his rap. Like you and I might think it's a joke, but there's people out there that probably don't, and he's could definitely make money off it, and then whatever else he wants to do. There's a lot outside the octagon for Tyron Woodley. So I say you hang it up now and you cash out while things are still looking up. Don't be another BJ Penn story where you go on like a fucking 20-30 fight losing streak or whatever it was. I think it was like how many fights did he lose in a row? Wasn't it like
I think like
7 or
90.
something?
No, he lost a good bit. I
and
think
he took and
7
he
is
took a lot
fair.
of damage, and we're
Yeah.
seeing that damage now, like manifest itself in the real world. He's BJ Penn is doing all kinds of bad shit, and you don't have that with Tyron Woodley. Like Tyron's a pretty, you or I might not love him, his personality, but like he's a pretty stable guy. I think
Yeah.
he's got a stable life. I think he's not out there getting arrested, and he's not doing crazy shit. So I'd like to see him not get to that point where he is a BJ Penn who is, a really washed fighter who's going in there and just getting wrecked by prospects as like a gatekeeper, and then just it affects his real life, his personal life, where we're seeing his his life outside the octagon degrade before our eyes, like we did with BJ Penn, or like we are with BJ Penn, I should say. um, I don't want that to happen to him because he seems like a guy that's like he's still outside of the cage. And outside of his athletic career, he's got his shit together. So I don't know. I'd like to see him pursue more avenues that in that direction. But then again, I'm not Tyron Woodley. I'm not his family. I'm not his friends. So who am I to say exactly what you should do? I'm just looking from the outside, speculating from, you know, my my perspective.
I think you're right. You've kind of convinced me a little more. I was more on the side of him not retiring, but now maybe, yeah, you raised some fair points.
He's
He
just shown
probably
nothing,
should.
man. He's
Yeah.
shown nothing in 15 rounds that leads me to think like he's got any fight left in
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And it's going to get to the point where that starts getting really ugly, like horrific knockouts and, it just like
Yeah, it's just gonna
brutal.
it's gonna be a downward spiral that just gets
Yeah.
worse and worse. Yeah.
So like why
Why
go
bother?
through that? Just
For
cash out
Kamzat,
now. For
did you
comes.
notice the round that was a 10-8, the fourth round? The striking differential 113 versus 2.
Ooh,
Can we just talk about that?
that's
That is
that's
that has to be close to breaking some kind of world record. I mean, that's insane to me.
yeah, we're spending a lot of time here talking about Tyron Woodley.
But Colby
We
is a
gotta talk about Colby
specimen.
Covington.
This guy
Wow.
is easily one of the greatest of all time. I mean, he in the fifth or even the fifth round, he didn't have any sweat on him at all. He looked like he was in the first round fighting. He doesn't get tired, and his punches always have that oomph to them. No matter what round it is, he's always coming at you, always pressuring. I don't know what he does for cardio or how he trains, but I think that should be the model of what to do for any athlete in MMA. It's absolutely astounding. I'm so impressed with him. I really am. And regardless of what you think about his character and whatnot, you got to look at him as a fighter and admit that he is probably going to hold a belt very soon. You know,
It's
it's likely.
he's a special athlete. Uh I mean, not every fighter gets a call from the president after his performance, Like that's a big deal. Like regardless of how you feel about him, his politics, or the president and his politics, um you have to acknowledge that that's a very big deal. And he is going out there and just doing remarkable things every time he goes in the octagon. I'm always very impressed with him. And I will say his output was a little less in the first 2 rounds as opposed to some of his prior performances, say against like maybe the RDA fight or the Robbie Lawler fight, which were both really, really dominant performances by him. Um, and I think that's just because he probably did respect Tyron's power at first, and knew in the back of his head like, hey, this guy, he might come out here swinging like a bat out of hell because I fucking pissed him off. But then I think he discovered that that was not the case, and Tyron, he discovered with us as the fight was progressing that Tyron was fighting this fight pretty much the same way he fought his last two. And then he just really put it on him after that, after making that revelation. Um, so it's, dude, he's so fucking good. He's really good. I don't like the Jorge Masvidal fight. I told you this already. I don't think it's a challenge for him. I'm gonna be honest. I think the Jorge Masvidal Colby fight will go very, very similarly to the Jorge Masvidal Usman fight, and people are gonna be real disappointed by it. I will say though, Colby more offensive in his wrestling. So like he will wrestle and really put it on someone, like almost like Habib style, like lots of ground and pound, very vicious. Usman style isn't so much like that. It's a little different, but um, I don't see Masvidal winning that fight if that was to happen. So I don't like it. I think Colby is like one fight away from a title shot. So maybe Leon Edwards, because I think that's a bigger challenge for him. I think they have somewhat similar styles, and the competition is just better. And then I say the winner of that fights the winner of Gilbert and Kamaru, like the champion. So um, yeah, I don't know what you do with Jorge right now, but I don't think it's the Colby Covington fight. There's a lot of beef there. There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of marketability, but that was also the case with this fight with Tyron Woodley. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was a good fight, right? Like it wasn't a good competitive fight. It was just a dominant performance by Colby Covington. I don't necessarily need to see more dominant performances like by Colby. Like I'm
We get it,
convinced.
yeah.
I'm
We
convinced.
get it.
Let's put him up against the top of, like the Usman fight. The Usman fight was very competitive, like that's like he is at that level. We don't need to see any more of these gimme fights. And yeah, I'm just so unbelievably impressed with him. I, it,
It
I
leaves you speechless, doesn't it? Because it's so
yeah,
unique
yeah, and
and
I,
different.
I, I this is gonna sound bad, but I love the way he pisses people off. I absolutely love it. Like I don't agree with his stance on like I'm not
Yeah.
against the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't think they're terrorists like he does. I'm not a MAGA guy. I'm not a Trump guy really. But oh man, it really I find it very gratifying the way looking at social media after Colby Covington wins and then or after Colby Covington talks shit and backs it up.
It's just a
I think
sea of
I
anger in a
it's
lot of
just
people.
people get so triggered, dude. They
Yeah.
get so upset by him, and I think it's fucking hilarious. Personally, I love it. I love seeing people get angry at things that kind of don't matter. Like Colby Covington, like in the grand scheme of the world, Colby Covington doesn't matter. Like he doesn't. Like this
It's
is not
still
a.
an MMA sport, It's not like life
Yeah,
or death here.
this
Yeah,
guy's not
it's just
going out
yeah.
and like he's not making decisions that change the world and change people's lives. He's a fighter. He's a prize
Yeah.
fighter. So when his political opinions trigger people, I think it's fucking hilarious. Because his opinions, like you or I, ultimately don't matter. I
Yeah.
think. I think most people's opinions on any subject don't matter. Maybe that's very nihilistic of me. I don't know. But I don't care what anyone thinks about anything really,
Yeah.
unless they're in a position of power. Then and they could alter your life. Then I think you should care. But Colby's not in that position. So watching people get fucking triggered by him saying some pretty bad shit. I mean, let's be honest. Calling Tyron Woodley a terrorist, that's bad. Like that's real bad. Like
It's
that's
bad, but it's kind of funny.
it
It's
is
pretty funny. But
like I
but when he's actually, well, I don't know if he's being serious or not. That's the that's the tough part.
Well, yeah, because there is almost no distinction
Yeah.
anymore
I'm
between.
starting to think that the Colby character is becoming him, like
Yes,
that he's starting to morph with his
yes,
made up persona. That's becoming the actual Colby now.
is
It's
absolutely
fun
true.
to watch that transformation where everyone's saying, "Oh, Colby's a nice guy. He's just doing this to get, promotional hype and all that." And he even admitted to that. But now you're seeing just this Colby never breaking character. You're starting to
Hmm.
see him becoming a little too he's acting a little too well, I should say. And I'm starting to think that this is the actual Colby now. He is truly becoming chaos.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I believe his I believe him when he says these things. Like when he says that I think BLM people are domestic terrorists. Like I believe that he believes that.
Yeah.
Like that. And of course, it's offensive. It's bad. But
But that's what he's all about. You got to
yeah.
respect
I
that.
I guess I hold the I I hold this view all the time. Like the way I don't care about Colin Kaepernick kneeling and in a form of protest, or the way I don't care about LeBron James, wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, and the way I don't care about Tyron Woodley answering Black Lives Matter to every question at the press conference. I also don't care about what Colby has to say about the matter. Like I just hey, these like I respect their opinions. I respect the beliefs that they hold, and I think it's fine that they use their platform as athletes to uh, express their political beliefs, and I may not agree with honestly either side. Um, but I ultimately also just don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
and But that's just me. People are gonna give a shit, and that's their right. I don't necessarily begrudge you for that. Like if you, it, I mean, if you get upset by Colby Covington calling Tyron Woodley a terrorist, like I don't think that's a uh like I understand. I guess I understand. Even though I ultimately believe that these people's words and opinions don't matter, uh, I guess I understand because that is taking it very very far. I mean, Tyron Woodley, all jokes aside, and you and I aren't huge fans of him, and we don't think he has a typically or a very likable personality. Seems like a decent dude. At the end of the day, he seems like a fine guy. He's a
Yeah.
family dude.
Yeah.
He's an athlete, and he's never done anything in his career in the public light where I'm like, oh man, Tyron Woodley's such a piece of shit. Like he says some shit where I'm like, oh Tyron, come on, man, like you're being, I don't like the way you're acting right now. But I don't look at him the same way I look at someone like oh, maybe Connor, where I'm like, Jesus, this guy he's a bad dude. He's doing some bad shit. Um,
He paid for it. He paid
yeah,
for
he did.
it.
Um, and Colby paid for it too when he fought Usman. Usman
Oh
broke
yeah.
his jaw, and he might pay for it again if he and Usman fight again, which I think is all but inevitable.
You can't not have that fight.
Yeah,
Unless
I mean,
Burns beats Usman, which is likely, you're gonna have them fighting in the near future eventually. At least next year.
yeah, I mean, I think if Usman or if Burns beats Usman, I still think Colby gets the next title shot, and then Colby, win or lose, I think is gonna fight Usman after
Yeah.
that. If he doesn't, if that's assuming Burns wins against
Welterweight
Usman.
has this like love triangle going on where it's three
Yeah,
fighters with basically the exact same style as each other that have very high chances of defeating each other. So it's always interesting because you
yeah,
never really know where it's gonna go because they're just so goddamn similar.
yeah,
If you have three Khabib Nurmagomedovs at lightweight and they just keep circling in and out of title contention, it leads to some interesting questions because you never quite know what's gonna happen. And I love Colby. I don't know where he would stand against someone like Gilbert Burns though, because that's a tough one because a lot of people think Burns is going to beat Usman, and then Colby got beaten by Usman, and then you have the MMA math going on, which of course is bullshit, but it's still fun to look at, and sometimes it holds value. So I really like welterweight right now. I think it's a fun place to be. I
The
think the
reason
UFC in general is just getting so much better.
the reason it's so fun is because of all the unknowns, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's three guys, four if you count Leon Edwards, with similar skill sets, but I would not say exactly the same or identical, but similar skill sets. And every single matchup looks very competitive, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's a great division right now. I love it. I love it. Of all the fighters, I think, or not all the fighters, but of those four, who do you think is champ in 2021? Not like by 2021, but just in 2021. Which of the four of them? Colby,
I
Leon, Gilbert, Usman.
see Leon's kind of stuck in this bubble where he can't like escape the United Kingdom, it seems. So it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to
yeah.
to include him. But if I were to include him, I would still say Gilbert Burns. Honestly, that dude
That's
is
kind of
just.
where I was leaning to. Gilbert Burns.
I mean, Usman's fantastic. Colby's
Hmm.
fantastic, but Usman or Gilbert Burns just seems to have more tools in his toolbox and stronger um basic fundamentals. He seems like he has just so many more ways to win and so many more ways to be dominant in these fights, whether it goes down to the floor, whether it's a BJJ battle, or whether it's striking. Gilbert just seems like the more complete package between the four guys. Next to that, I would say Usman, and then Colby, and then Leon. What would you
Yeah,
say?
I think I would agree with that list. I think, I mean, I maybe I would tie Burns and Usman because I think they are both
Yeah,
well. Actually,
I could
no.
see that.
Actually, no. I take that back because, like you said, with the BJJ stuff, I think that
That puts
puts
Burns a little
Burns
ahead.
just a notch higher.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
But both Usman and Burns have terrific wrestling. Both guys are excellent strikers and have power in their striking. Like Colby is an excellent striker too. That's another thing we got to mention about him. His kickboxing has looked much
Oh
improved since he's
yes.
gone to this new to MMA Masters. But Colby isn't like a knockout striker. Colby is a volume striker. Colby uses his striking to chip away at his opponent, and ultimately uses his wrestling to and his ground and pound to really dominate. Usman and Burns are not like that. Well, they are, but they also have just some crazy power in their hands that I don't think Colby has. And then yeah, like you said, both guys terrific wrestlers. But then I think Burns has BJJ that is a notch above Usman's. We don't really, I can't recall seeing Usman's jiu-jitsu really at play.
Yeah.
He doesn't use it a whole lot. Am I
He
wrong
doesn't
in
need to.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
always in control.
and so I think if you put both guys on their back, I think you got to give Burns the edge there with his jiu-jitsu black belt. He is a black
Mhm.
belt, correct?
Yeah. The only thing
Yeah,
is, I don't know how his COVID exposure went. I don't know how affected he is by that, because I
that's a
know
good point.
it affects a lot of people pretty harshly, and that doesn't seem to go away when permanent lung damage or whatnot. Whether or not that's even true, no one knows what the hell is going on with this virus. So
Here,
that's another aspect you got to look at.
yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Here's a question, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this off the top of your head. Have we seen a fighter that has tested positive
Yes.
fight?
Yes, and lose and not look anywhere near the same. And I can't
Who
remember
was
who it
it?
was. They looked good before COVID. They got COVID, and then they looked poorly. I don't remember who it was though. It
Hmm.
wasn't someone. They were definitely ranked, but I don't think they were contender ready yet.
Damn,
So their
I wish
name
we knew.
eludes me at the moment. And then I saw somebody else fight who did have it, and they did fine. So I don't have
Yeah.
enough data to make a conclusion here,
Well,
but
it's also the question of did they were they symptomatic or asymptomatic?
Yeah.
Did they test positive, but then because I think what happened with someone, who was it? I think it was OSP.
Yes.
He tested positive and his fight was off, but then he fought the next week. I think
That
that's
was
because
weird.
I think what happened was he probably tested positive, but it was a false positive. They'll
Yeah.
still regardless, if you take 4 tests and 3 of them are negative but one is positive, they'll call the fight for that week and then they'll move it, I think. And as long as you keep testing negative, you'll have the fight. But if there's that one positive, then they call it for that week. So I think that's probably what happened with him, where he probably just got a false positive and was fine. Um, but yeah, it is an interesting point about COVID and burns, and what was the severity of it? Did he feel like absolute shit? Was he fine? Was he symptomatic, asymptomatic? How long did he have it? How did he treat it? How has his training been impacted by it? There's a lot of questions there. You're right. And what will that mean for his cardio? Will it mean nothing, or will we notice a bit of a degradation in his cardio? I think that's a very reasonable point to bring up. I don't know. There's only we just have to wait and see. We haven't seen fighters who have battled with it
Yeah.
come come
Shoot.
back yet.
Yeah,
Like
because these fighters are mostly pretty healthy people, and
yeah,
you're not gonna get torn apart by it too much if you're a very healthy person with a good, you know.
and we don't really have a sample size yet.
Yeah, it
We don't.
says Daniel Cormier tested positive for it before his Stipe fight. Davidson Figueiredo also tested positive. Gerald Mearshart tested positive in August, beginning of August.
Hmm.
So there's a few guys, but then again, they could be false
DC,
positives.
I feel like it had to be a false
I think
positive with
DC
DC.
was.
I
I
don't
don't.
recall him ever like speaking about having it or anything like that. But I don't know.
Oh, apparently he was sick. Middle of July, he got sick, tested positive.
Hmm.
He said he didn't take his training down. Um, didn't know if he would have made the fight. Wow.
Wow.
I
I
just
didn't.
kept training, not knowing I was sick, running the risk of infecting everyone else, infecting the entire gym. You don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Jesus.
this is tough.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now. And DC is also not a great sample size because he's one of the greatest to ever do it. So he's a bit of an
Wow,
anomaly.
this is
Like
strange. Cormier
what?
said his drastic changes in his numbers. He felt drastic changes in his numbers when he felt sick. His resting heart rate went from 50 to 70. His heart rate variability plummeted from 70 to 23, and his temperature went up 2 degrees on average. That's weird.
Wow.
The resting heart rate thing. That's a lot. 50
Yeah,
to 70. Jeez.
dude, a 70 resting heart. That is.
I mean, that's not like that's that's on the verge of being unhealthy to live with, but from to be at 50 and then go to 70,
Yeah.
like that's strange. All right. Enough about DC though. DC had his moment. I wonder if that played any effect in his Stipe fight.
I don't know
Questions.
because I didn't like
I didn't know any of this until like
yeah.
right now, which is
But I
strange.
also in that Stipe the trilogy fight. Did you see bad cardio from DC?
No,
Because I
not
didn't.
at all. No,
But then
he looked
again,
great.
he's an anomaly, dude. He's one of the
Yeah,
goats. Like so.
he's COVID can't take him down. Stipe could, but not COVID.
Stipe certainly could, but that's because Stipe is one of the goats as well. I think Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time.
I would agree. I think he trumps Fedor
Yeah, yeah. Competition,
because
different.
even though that, I just think the competition nowadays is so much more advanced than it was back
Right.
in the day. Even if someone's at their prime back in the day, you're
It's
still fighting
evolved.
people with much less knowledge and much less of a skill set than compared to fighters today. So
Correct.
that's a bold statement on our part because a lot of people it seems to be split 50-50, but I would definitely go Stipe on that one. That seems like the logical conclusion
What a
there.
lot of people would say Fedor is
Yeah,
is the goat.
the heavyweight goat.
I don't know, man.
I just don't. I just disagree.
I think you're right. I think because back then I don't think MMA in itself. was really a practice the way it is today. You know, you don't go to an MMA gym back then, back in
Yeah,
those Pride
that's
days. You were a
yeah.
kickboxer, you were a BJJ guy, you were, you know, there was so much specialism, if that's even a word. I don't know. Uh, Specialists, and we just don't have that today. People are so well rounded. I think,
I think he'd have a much harder time nowadays in his prime than he would back
yeah,
then in his prime.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an unfair comparison because they're
It's
two guys
yeah, it's one of
living
those
in
things where you
two
you
different eras.
you don't have objective facts to base it on. You just have
Yeah,
subjective everything. And that's
yeah,
what makes it fun, you know. No one's going to
mm,
have the same opinion as everybody.
yeah, and it's never a fair experiment, right?
Some people say Cain Velasquez is still the greatest of all time,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Some people say goddamn what's his face? Um Fedor, not Fedor. Fabricio Verdum is the greatest of all time. You've
yeah.
got some different opinions. Now, I would say Tanner Bozer is the greatest of all time, but that's just me.
We're big Tanner Bozer fans here
I
on
love that
Caffeinated
man.
Combat. Yeah, I really
100%.
like him too. I can't wait to see what the future holds for that guy.
Yeah.
He's a strange heavyweight
He really is. He doesn't
in
move
a
like a
good
heavyweight
way.
at all.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of strange, how about that draw between Donald Cerrone
yeah,
and Niko Price?
that was odd. But I get it. The eye pokes were
Yeah.
the reasoning behind that. So Cerrone felt like he still lost the fight, and I felt so bad for him because
Yeah.
he was so disappointed. He even said like, I
Dude,
count that as a loss.
the
You know.
fucking when Bruce Buffer read this, it's so funny. It is hilarious. The difference
The
of
difference,
reactions.
yeah.
Jason Herzog holds both of their hands up. Niko Price is freaking out, screaming, celebrating. Cerrone has this look of pure confusion on his face.
He's so
he's
out
looking
of
at
it.
he's looking at
Yeah.
Niko like, why are
Why are
you
you
so
happy?
happy? And Nico's probably grateful he didn't lose the fight because of that point deduction, because it was close. But I don't blame Cerrone necessarily for being disappointed by that, right? Like, he felt he lost, and the only reason he didn't was because of the point deduction. I get that. That makes sense. Um, there's been, oh boy, Mad Max movie outside. There's been a lot of talk now about um, Cerrone hanging it up. Dana White even said it last night. Uh, do you think he's at that point?
You know, it's not that he it's not that he looked great. Obviously, he got a draw. He held his own against Niko Price, and Niko Price is a guy where if you lose to him, it's not that big of a deal in my opinion because he's a scary dude, and most people would lose to him. But Cerrone just didn't look good. He didn't look energized. He didn't look like he had it in him. He was holding his own, landing good head kicks at times, good strikes, but he seemed like he didn't want to be there. I don't know exactly why. His body language just didn't add up for me. You know, it's tough because he got a draw. He looked decent. He held his own against one of the up and coming guys, but like you said earlier, he's taking so much damage, and there's no other way to put it as that's just not good. You know, you can't take damage over how many fights Cowboy's had, which is a lot. He's had a metric fuck ton of fights. This is a dude that
Yeah,
is extremely active, and you gotta objectively say like, hey, I've been in a lot of fights. I take damage in all of those fights. This isn't good. Maybe I should pursue other avenues because Cowboy is a guy that can do that. You know, he's great with the ads. He's great with Modelo, for example. You know, I could see him being an ad dude. Everybody loves Cowboy. He's a
yeah,
perfect poster, a perfect face for your company. You know, he's got this ranch. He could do whatever he wants. He can have his own goddamn TV show and people would love it. So I think that he might want to consider retiring. I know he wants one more fight. I think that's what he said. Am I correct in saying that? Did he
um,
did he want another fight? I can't remember what he was
I
saying.
mean, yeah, he wants to keep fighting forever.
I think he said he wanted one more to prove to Dana that he could stay in. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think you're right.
yeah,
So I don't know. It depends on who you give him.
Did
Like
you?
who would you give Cowboy?
Yeah, I
I don't
don't
know.
really know, but did you hear? Did you hear him in the post-fight press conference say he thinks COVID's gonna go away after the election?
Yeah, it might,
That
but
was that was another thing that people got so triggered by, and I was like, guys,
it doesn't
who
matter.
cares?
It's an MMA
Who
fighter. Whether or not that's
cares?
true or not, it doesn't matter.
Cow like they get so fucking upset by these guys having like opinions. Like I don't understand. I don't think it's a big deal, but whatever.
Like
I don't
someone like
agree with
myself,
it.
I'm hell bent on like not thinking that it won't go away, right? But that doesn't mean that I give a shit if Cowboy disagrees with me.
Yeah, like I don't think it's gonna go away. I don't agree with what he's saying, but like I also don't fucking care what Cowboy
And
thinks about
yeah,
COVID. He's not Dr. Fauci, you know, he's not
yeah,
the guy on the front lines who has to deal with it and make decisions regarding it. Like whatever.
it's not a big deal.
Um but as far as his retirement goes, Dana was saying like we're gonna have to have a talk. And
Yeah, dude.
I think it's gonna be really tough to convince this guy to retire. I really do.
Dude, Dana sounded like he was gonna murder him, take him in the back, and shoot him in the head. The way he was saying that, dude.
Put him
Did you
out
get
the
that vibe
pasture.
to it?
No.
Dude, yeah, he was like, yeah, we're gonna have a serious talk with Cowboy. I'm gonna take him in the back. I'm gonna talk to him real good. And I'm like, Jesus, Dana. And he kept saying shit like that. And I'm like, are you gonna kill this man?
Put him down, old Yeller.
Yeah, like literally, I was like, he didn't look that bad. Like he looked okay and probably should retire. But Dana was acting like he went out there and just got murdered for all 3 rounds, and that just wasn't the case.
I don't think you're gonna get Cowboy to retire until a doctor like
Yeah,
refuses to clear him to fight.
yeah. It's
It,
just what he wants to do.
yeah.
He doesn't care about the consequences. So where do you yeah, how do you judge something like that, you know? Like
I don't know.
what's the point where you have to tell someone you just have to stop even though you don't want to?
Yeah, I mean, like ultimately Dana is in charge
Yeah.
and gets to tell it is like he doesn't have to let him fight, but you know that might
Yeah, this
strain
is
their relationship. I don't know.
yeah.
It's hard, man, because he
This is just like the UFC games when you're playing career mode and you're having a blast, and all of a sudden Dana's like, "You gotta retire, brother," and you're like, "I'm still playing, bro. Stop."
but you've been knocked out 35 times.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about that.
um yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I think he 100% absolutely needs to retire, but I also don't think it'd be a bad idea at all. Um, but I don't think what you or I think matters in that regard. I think I just don't think you're gonna be able to convince him. I really don't.
I mean, look at his record. Justin Gaethje lost, Tony Ferguson lost, Conor McGregor lost. Like, come on, this he's not fighting bad. He's fighting the best in the world.
That's
So
true.
it's, but I mean, he's still taking damage. So there's two
Well, he
different
struggled with
ways to
Niko
look at
Price,
this.
and Niko Price is not the
He
best
did
in the world.
no, and he would have lost that fight if he didn't get stabbed in the eye multiple times.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say in that regard, he should really look into it.
Also, I got to give Jason Herzog credit for actually deducting a point. I think we need to see more point deductions for fouls. To be honest,
Yeah,
I understand it was inadvertent, it's unintentional. Most of the time, these fouls are whether it's a an eye poke, a groin strike, back of the head strike, cage grab. All of these things we need to start seeing more punishments for them. Um, I just I you know I support that. I of course I don't like seeing fights be completely altered by that kind of thing. But like if you commit a foul, whether it was intentional or not, and obviously it was unintentional by Niko Price. He's not the kind of guy that's gonna go out there and try to poke Cowboy Cerrone to death. But you just you have to punish for that. But I think the ultimate problem is the gloves, and that's something that actually needs to be fixed. But yeah, I think Jason Herzog did a good job reffing that fight, and I didn't hate the fact that it was a draw. I thought that was fine. Willow on the other hand, absolutely hated it. She was like,
She really got upset with what you just said there.
yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that.
Speaking of
She's weighing in.
reffing, before we even go into this, I have to ask, did you watch that prelim fight?
You know, it's a funny story because I didn't watch it at first. I tuned in. My first fight was Kevin Holland, and Gerald. I forget his last name, but you know what I'm talking about.
Darren
Stewart,
Stewart.
something. Darren Stewart, yeah. And I was noticing the pools of blood in the octagon, and I mean, like, the octagon was just blood
Yes.
red, and I was like, something happened here. Something real bad happened here. And then you texted me about the controversy, and I was like, oh, which fight? So I went back and watched it, and I watched some other prelim fights, and I was like, oh, so this is what happened.
Yeah.
This is what caused
Jessica Rose Clark,
octagon
Sarah
to be
Alpar.
literally red. That was unfortunate.
Really, really
That was
bad,
bad.
referee
It
work.
was real bad.
Really bad stuff.
Chris Tyone is on a streak. He's doing real well lately. My God.
I could be wrong when I say this, but I don't think he reffed another fight after that for the rest of the night.
No, I don't think he did.
That's interesting.
Look, that girl was done when that knee hit.
Yeah.
I that's just what I think. Did you see any offense
No,
besides
that
just
was
pure
that was it.
survival?
He
after
just
that?
straight up broke the rules by using instant replay and then letting the fight continue.
Oh, I think they actually changed the rules during that fight or during that event for the first time, but I could be wrong.
I don't know, dude.
I'm pretty sure that they said in the beginning that we could use instant replay now and not end the thing, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. But
I mean,
maybe
that
it
is the better
didn't work
rule.
out.
Like, you should be doing that. You should be
Yeah.
allowing that.
I could check.
Maybe they changed it
meantime.
after the whole Ed Herman thing last week.
They honestly might have. I honestly think it's a good change. It just didn't work out in that particular fight
Yeah,
very
when
well.
you're fucking changing the rule, like, you gotta. Yeah, you're probably.
They didn't exactly explain it well. There's a big rule change, and they just kind of mentioned it once, and that was it. In the beginning of the card, you know, not during a fight. It seemed weird.
Dom was very much annoying me during that whole thing, in the commentary when he was like, "Hey, if I'm Sarah Alpar, I'm real happy that this ref has given me another chance." No, dude, that's not how it works. Like, first of all, she didn't look happy about it. She looked like she was just trying to desperately survive. Secondly, he just violated the rules by having her continue after the use of replay, having the fight continue after the use of replay, and it was an objectively bad call. Like, she was done. It was very obvious to anyone that she was done. Just because you're still salty about the Henry Cejudo stoppage doesn't mean... Oh, okay, that's nice. Gotta let that happen.
It's a classic around
But
here.
just because he's still salty about the Henry Cejudo stoppage, like, dude, come on. Even Paul Felder was like, no, that's not okay here.
So I looked it up. It was after that Ed Herman fight. They do say that you could use instant replay now during what would be a fight-ending sequence, and then continue the fight if the ref sees something that's not what he initially thought it was. So they did change it after that. They just did
Jesus, man.
a poor job of explaining that because most people don't know that. And even I don't remember if it was Paul Felder that said that's against the rules.
I think Anik was saying it.
Or Anik, yeah, one of the commentators, I can't remember who, or maybe two, who were saying like, "Oh, that's against the rules. What are we doing here?" And then I think Dom or someone was like, "Oh, they just changed it." So when the commentators or a commentator doesn't know the rules, it seems strange.
It's yeah, I mean, it's bad, and I just went on Instagram and saw someone that we know with Valentina Shevchenko. I don't want to say his name just because, like, I don't want to, like.
What? Willow is very upset about that one.
Wow, this is interesting. I'm gonna send you this, but back to God, what the fuck were we saying? Sorry, that threw me off so hard. But Yeah, not terrific referee work. Regardless of the rules, regardless of whether or not you could use instant replay during a fight ending sequence. Um, I think I think that was the end of the fight. I think he should have waved it off. Everyone thought he waved it off. Bruce Buffer came in the octagon and was ready to make the official decision. You know,
Why is he with Valentina Shevchenko?
dude,
What are you doing?
I
That's I mean, I know he's a huge MMA
yeah,
fan,
he
but
also got
that's awesome.
really big.
Yeah, dude, he looks good. He looks in shape, you know?
Jesus
He doesn't look like
Christ.
good for you, man. Hell yeah.
What a weird thing to
What a
see.
strange turn of events. Get this man on the podcast. We need to know about Valentina Shevchenko.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
I could probably hit him up and ask.
That would be awesome, dude. He's been to a ton of UFC events too.
Yeah.
So like
I don't know where he
he's
gets
in
some
there.
money to do this shit.
I don't know. I think he's like he's gotten in somewhere. We need to find out what he's doing.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about before all this happened?
We were talking about
the
Chris
controversy.
Tyone
Yeah, it's just
murdering
Tyone, okay.
someone.
Yeah, I think he needs to. I think he's done enough damage for 1 week. I think we need to
But dude,
take him
did
out
they
to
like
the pasture and put him down.
did they like pull him from the event or something after that
I
happened?
honestly think Dana did. Dana was very upset, and I think he just told him like, "You're done, bro. You've been Mazzagati'd. We're gonna handle this from now on. Go home, get your sippy cup, go watch some cartoons. You know, just do what you do, Chris."
Wow.
That I don't know, because Dana does shit like that, from what I have read. So the fact that he wasn't reffing any more fights leads me to believe he did tell him to go basically away. I don't know.
Or maybe the commission just pulled him or something. I don't know.
Honestly,
It's weird.
they probably have policies for this kind of thing. Like when you make an egregious error like that, they could just pull you from the card because maybe they don't see you fit for that particular night. Maybe you're intoxicated and smoking cigarettes with Dom. I don't know.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, that's the controversy of the night. I'm glad we had that.
Yeah. It's always fun
Always
to
need
talk
that.
about fucking
Yeah.
bad reffing. We built this whole show around that.
It's the greatest part, really.
Yeah. What is there anything else we need to address? There was a really weird Johnny Walker fight.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about that for a little bit. Johnny Walker, I didn't know this, but when he was walking out, they said he was obviously training with John Kavanagh, and I was
Yeah.
like, what? When did this happen?
Mhm.
I just learned that. That's a big deal. But it didn't seem like it panned out very well. He seemed to go right back to his original fighting style, which is completely reckless and defenseless and just purely offensive, which is fun as hell, but it just doesn't work very well against, light heavyweights like Superman Spann with crazy power. You saw Walker go down multiple times. The one time he flopped like a fish and fell over and then got back up before Spann shot on him. Like he was close to being out on his feet in a lot of points in that fight, and I think it was the most fun fight of the night, just because of it was. John Jones said it perfectly. It was
Bar
literally
fight.
just a bar fight. They looked like they were both completely plastered, just going at it, and it was so much.
It was
fun.
a weird fight, and
Yeah.
a little bit of controversy there too with the back of the head strikes.
How can I forget?
Spann and his team were pretty upset about that, and I don't necessarily blame them. It's so fucking hard in the moment to see if they're hitting back of the head or not, and for the referee to make that judgment. And then what do you do after that? Do you take a point? Do you reset? Like how that all works?
Yeah, that's
That's a
tough.
tough position to be in if you're a ref. But they were mostly legal, I would say. Like probably like
There
8.
was maybe one or two slipped in there, illegally, at
Yeah.
least.
But yeah, not. I would not say it was a good Johnny Walker performance, but he
No.
did get the win, so good for him. And I hope the whole John Kavanagh coaching really, pays off for him in the near future. But someone else who looked really good as she has lately was Mackenzie Dern with that
Oh yeah.
um, really bad fight IQ by Randa Markos. I mean, Mackenzie
That
Dern,
always happens with Mackenzie Dern and her opponents, doesn't it?
like they just make bad decisions.
Yeah, they always go right into her guard and think they can handle her on the ground, and then they get submitted. Same thing with Hannah Cyphers.
Yeah, dude, that it was weird. Mackenzie threw a kick and fell, so Randa literally had to do nothing, but then she just dove into her guard, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Um, yeah, and then Mackenzie just got a nice armbar. She's one of the best submission specialists in women's MMA. She really is. She's terrific on the ground. Um, I think she will have a really tough time with some of the better strawweights, the people towards the top of that division. But she's been on a tear lately with these submission victories, and it's interesting to see a specialist in modern MMA. Someone who is so straight. That's not to say she can't throw her hands. I'm sure she can. She doesn't really get to show it much, but it's interesting to see someone succeeding so much in modern mixed martial arts by sticking to one particular martial art so heavily. I don't think she's going to be able to do that if she takes on really high level opponents in the future. But hey, we'll see. She's looked terrific lately. She seems to be in significantly better shape. Like she's ripped,
Yeah.
as opposed to like in the past. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what's next for Mackenzie. She's been very active lately, and she's just been getting some really slick, nice submissions. I mean, people don't know what to do with her when they go on the ground, which leads one to ask, why would you voluntarily go on? It's one thing in Mackenzie, it gets a single leg or something and takes you down, and you're like, okay, well, she imposed her will on the other fighter and did, but man, Randa Markos was just she just wanted to be there. She just she just dove right into that guard, no hesitation.
She's like, I need this guard. I really just need it.
Yeah.
That was such a weird. It goes back to fight IQ. She's got Johnny Walker fight IQ. Let's just be
I
honest.
guess it was just you know, um instinct that you see
Yeah,
a person
yeah,
on their back, you see the fighter down, and then you want to just go in for the kill. Maybe she thought Mackenzie was hurt or something.
yeah.
Maybe she
I mean,
overestimated what it was that happened to her.
yeah.
It was just a slip. She just overreached on a kick and fell over. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Randa Marcos saw something that we didn't see and thought she was going to take advantage of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
didn't pay off. Didn't go well.
It reminds me of the Sean O'Malley fight when Sean like broke his entire leg and then his opponent just slammed in his guard, would not leave
Yeah.
during that last bit of the bout.
Uh-huh.
We don't know how these fighters think when they're in the heat of the moment. The adrenaline's rushing. You see your opponent fall over. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it's something to look out for. I think Mackenzie's gonna cause some trouble. I agree with you. I don't think she's gonna do anything maybe top 5, but I think she'll cause some trouble. Close to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's because like you said, she's a specialist, so there's gonna be people that can counter her very easily, right? That's just how it is. And some people she'll do very well against, but it's just there's so much to question about her, whether or not she can handle striking with these people. I mean, you saw her with Hannah Cyphers. She didn't look too good, I mean, it's tough. I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because the top tier of just about any division are not one trick ponies. That's true for women's strawweight as well. So it'll be interesting to see someone who is so dominant in one particular area try to compete with people who are pretty dominant in every area. Yeah, we'll have to see. Was there anyone else on this card, Matthew?
I mean, we kind of talked about Kamzat,
Yeah.
and there's not much to talk
There's
about
not.
with him. We kind of said everything we needed to say.
He went in there
when
and
we
he
were talking
knocked a
about
guy
Tyron and
out with
Colby.
ease.
Yeah, and he's got a real nice future ahead of him. That's Dana's special boy.
That's
right
his boy,
now.
yeah.
And and he's going places. What a dude. But yeah, I think that's about it. Honestly,
Yeah,
we had some damn good
it was
fights.
a
Some
good
nice
night.
controversy. A draw. Like so much stuff
It
going
was a
on here.
weird night.
Yeah,
Colby,
a lot of
being a racist.
that's Colby. That's what he does.
Yep.
And I mean, whether or not you like Donald Trump, you can't admire the fact that the president called a fighter in the post-fight interview. That's never
Colby's
happened
showing
before,
up here
and it's
right
it's
now.
good for the sport. I would imagine. I don't know if they're gonna talk about that
Colby
on any
just
Fox News
swatted
channels,
me,
but
bro.
dude, Colby's coming at you, bro. He's like, I heard what you said. I can't let them know I'm racist, bro. Oh man, where will Colby go next? Where will Tyron go next? Where will Cowboy, Niko? There's so many fighters that have just directions that I just don't know where they're gonna go. Where can they go? You know, like Colby and the Jorge thing or Leon. I just so much shit. But we're gonna find those out down the line eventually. You know, so
No,
that's
we're
why
never
we will
gonna
keep
find
watching
out.
MMA.
I'm canceled. Canceled
Damn
the
it.
show.
Joe Biden cancels MMA.
Mr. President.
Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe. Can't wait till Donnie gets his hands on
Oh,
Sleepy
God.
Joe in November.
Dude, that was funny.
That was.
What a unique guy. What a mad lad. Oh my god. All right, I think that's it.
Yeah, I guess.
I was like, I wanted to talk more about Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe. Nah, I'm done.
Dude.
What the hell was that?
Someone just got shot in my house.
Was that Joey?
That was Dana White knocking on the door. It's like, what did you say?
All right, well. Oh my god. Who is that? Who's sneezing?
That's Willow.
Wait, for real?
No. She's a
Is
little.
it Joey?
little
Joey sneezing?
No, it's Big Joey.
Oh, Dad. Doing too much coke.
Of course.
Adios.